Do you think rhythm and blues is drifting more and more towards rock and roll, so to say?
I think rock and roll is drifting toward the blues. Rhythm and blues has been here for 100 years. As long as you can remember, people have been singing rhythm and blues. Rhythm and blues will always be here. And I'm going to be here to help it stay. As long as I be here, rhythm and blues is going to stay here because I'm going to keep singing the blues.
R-E-S-P-C-T, find out what it means to me.
Lonely children, my pillows never dry.
No matter what you do or say, I'm gonna love you hard to tell. The way you do the things you do, the way you do, all depend on me. I decided long ago.
Why promote an R&B Music Hall of Fame museum, you ask? Rhythm and blues, or R&B as it's been affectionately coined, is a cornerstone in music history. We at the Robinson Sports and Entertainment Group believe that the history of R&B and the culture in America that ignited it must be preserved. The museum is an in-depth educational experience that provides information, cultural enrichment, and entertainment for people of all ages.
Soul is sometimes defined as the essence of the human spirit. In the popular music of the 1960s, soul meant something more tangible. It was a shout of joy, a cry of pain, and an emblem of uninhibited self-expression.
R-E-S-P-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-C-T, you can't take me out.
They were the days of American innocence. A father knows best. Lady Day passed on, and Fats Domino enticed the nation to visit Blueberry Hill. Elvis Presley burst out of Mississippi like a tornado, gathering followers from every sphere of American life. There was a cultural tidal wave in his hips and music. Radio stations flooded the country with this new sound from the South. But the roots of that music, the originators, remained unknown. These pioneers of rhythm and blues could be found at the far reaches of the radio dial, playing soulfully for their loyal fans. But they were confined to frustration as they watched their white counterparts triumph with the style they'd created. Struggling to find the key to mainstream America's heartbeat, scores of black artists and record companies searched for a new sound that would free them from the race music label.
Ever since Louis Jordan had burst onto the scene, Black America had developed a taste for upbeat urban rhythms. But on every level, American life was racially segregated, and the record industry was no different. Until 1947, black music was known as race music. Jerry Wexler, a reporter at Billboard magazine, was asked to find a more politically acceptable term.
There was some feeling that this was beginning to be resented, this race record business. And it was decided by the music staff to change the category race music. And we used to put the book to bed on a Friday night and come back to work on a Tuesday. And so Paul Ackerman, the editor, said, when you all come in on Tuesday, let's have some ideas of what we should change this to. So everybody chipped in with a notion, and I said, what about rhythm and blues? They said, oh, we like it. So it was no big deal at the time.
WDIA in Memphis, Tennessee was the first black programmed 50,000-watt radio station in the nation. So the only voice of the black community at that time was a black DJ. Nat D. Williams, B.B. King, Rufus Thomas. That was the beginning of personality radio. We had been denied an opportunity maybe for the movies. No television at that time, you know, for us. This was our stage. And we just brought color, rhythm, drama, a conviction.
The people in Memphis are so critical. Well, they would boo their mama. But that did not happen.
Because nobody watched us. They didn't care. They said, oh, leave them alone. There's a bunch of clowns over there. You know, they're not part of the mainstream of what's happening in America. But people started catching on.
Everybody having a lot of fun, oh baby. Yes, baby. Woo, baby. Having me some fun tonight.
The young people start really enjoying it, and they were sneaking around listening.
When Mom and Pop go to bed at night, they put those little transistor radios up under that pillow.
Or a disc jockey who didn't show up one night, and he went down to the car and grabbed some of these race records.
So the legend goes, Leo Mintz really introduced it to him over at Record Rendezvous.
Listen. That's rhythm and blues. I've been listening to those records for years.
You're not the only one, my friend.
And brought him up and just started playing the records.
This is Alan Freed, kids, rolling right along with your own special brand of music, all rhythm and blues.
In 1959, Berry Gordy gathered the best musicians from Detroit's thriving jazz and blues scene to cut songs for his new record company. Over a 14-year period, they were the heartbeat on My Girl, Bernadette, I Was Made to Love Her, and every other hit from Motown's Detroit era. By the end of their phenomenal run, this unheralded group of musicians had played on more #1 hits than the Beach Boys, the Rolling Stones, Elvis, and the Beatles combined, which makes them the greatest hit machine in the history of pop music. They called themselves the Funk Brothers.
American music, which is jazz, rhythm and blues, rock and roll, that became the music of the world. I mean, every country still have their own music. They all like their own music. But then they have Black American music and the white imitation of that Black American music.
Ruth Brown, the first significant singer for Atlantic Records, had been asking for her fair share of royalties for over 20 years.
And I was working in a private home, and I heard my music being played on the air, and the announcer speaking and giving all these wonderful accolades to my contributions to the music. And all of a sudden I decided, well, that's all good and true, but where's the check?
She was not alone. Early rock and roll history was all hustle and hum. Payment of royalties was avoided like the plague. But with the advent of box sets and CDs, the royalty issue came to a head. Ahmet felt obliged to face the music. Although Atlantic was now owned by Warner Communications, he said, "I'm still here, so I feel responsible." In 1988, Atlantic made reparations and reformulated their royalty structure. In addition, they donated $2 million to form the Rhythm and Blues Foundation for the support of veteran R&B artists.
All the performers that came before you, and they make their own maps, and they leave them for you if you care to read them. There's an art to it, and those guys were the masters. All the soul greats they were the masters at it.
Then you got quite a few others, but those legends shows you how to do it.
Apart from its gospel and blues heritage, soul had tangled roots in the world of independent record companies, which created music for a segregated audience.
They were called, at that time, race records. And they would have the word race on the record. The strong ones were black artists coming through the independent record companies. At that time, the music was being controlled by Chess Checker and Argo Record Company, Atlantic Record Company, companies like that were smart enough to sign up black artists and merchandise and market these black artists.
When people ask me why the music is still around, I've been doing it for 35 years professionally. It was here when I came. It will be here when I leave. Because the messages and the melodies are infinite.
Little Latin Loopy-Loo, the white stations wouldn't play it because the quote was that it was too hard rock. What it was is it just sounded too black for their white stations. Now, we didn't know that at the time, but the one thing that we're most proud of is that the black audience accepted us, just point blank, and they didn't have to. You know, they just flat didn't have to. But the great thing about the black audience is that if you are emotionally cutting it, that's what it's all about.
There were in those days 4 theaters that you were required to play to prove that you had sort of made it. They were called the Lichman chain, and it consisted of
the Regal Theater in Chicago,
the Howard in Washington.
There was the Uptown in Philadelphia,
and the Apollo in New York City. You had to play those 4 theaters.
Yes, I heard. Whoa, yes, I heard. Yes, it hurt me, baby. Nah, take it home.
I think just the nature of black music makes it almost like cell division. It just constantly grows and builds off of itself.
You look at TV shows like China Beach, and there's Diana Ross and the Supremes singing Reflection. You know, you listen to songs by acts in other musical genres, by rock and roll acts, by just other acts, you know, who are successful, and they all pay homage to R&B and soul music of the 60s, 50s, and 70s.
I think that soul music is around, is going to be around because it's the essence, it's the life of the music industry, soul music.
Now and then I call your name, and suddenly your face appears, but it's just a cry.